Welcome to the Journey to a Million podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Walker. This podcast is about my personal journey from being $25,000 in debt to getting to $1 million of net worth by the age of 43. Follow along with my journey, implement the ideas, and let's do it together. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's get started. I'll kind of tell you a little bit about the podcast. The podcast is called Journey to a Million, and it's about my journey of like in 2019, I was $25,000 in consumer debt, which is like, I figured when I said that, your eyes would be like, whoa, you know?
No, man, that sounds about average, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I decided to really like take control of my finances. And within the past 2 years, from January till 2019 till now, I've gotten my consumer debt down from 25,000 to like under 2,000 a couple months ago. So the podcast is about trying to go from that level to try to get to $1 million of net worth by the time I turn 43, which I just turned 34 a few days, like November 1st. And so I have basically 9 years to hit that level.
Okay, let's do it, man.
Yeah, I was like, if people are in the same level, like 50,000 net worth or so for myself, like, you know, they can follow along with my journey, implement the ideas, and then like 10 years from now, hopefully we'll all have to be millionaires, you know, or 9 years, I should say. So yeah, today, this is, I still have the construction going on. I talked about that last week on my podcast,
Right.
but hopefully it won't be too, noisy out there. But this is actually the first Zoom call we're doing. And we got Carlos Baltodano here from
Nice to meet everyone.
Baltodano Securities. It's our first Zoom call in the podcast. So we'll have it on video and audio version. So Carlos, he was always like the investing guy. We know each other through college. We're both in the same fraternity, Kappa Sigma, and he was on the investing game like way ahead of us because, you know, none of us really cared that much about investing back then. We had other things go on our mind and all that. We were like, yeah, Carlos is like the stock guy. But that's probably my biggest regret from age 20s and stuff is that I didn't do the things like you were doing of investing. And, you know, like I think if I had been investing since I was in my 20s, probably could be a millionaire by now. I mean, I might be giving myself too much credit, but like,
Yeah.
There's just been so much change from that time till now. I'm like just putting in $100 here or there, like at least it'd just be an exponential change in net worth if I had been starting at a young age. And so that's one of the big things of advice that I'd have for people that are younger than me and you is like in their 20s, if you're putting in money like here and there, you think you need a lot to start investing, but just that compounding over time, by the time you're in your 30s, it's like you can have a life-changing amount of net worth at that point. So can you tell us like a little bit about your history yourself, with your history of investing, like how you got into it, how'd you start liking it, how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, sure thing, C-Walk. Is that, and by the way, is it, are we going by Chris Walker or C-Walk going to work?
Hey, we can do C-Walk on here. I don't think the audience knows me as C-Walk yet, but yeah, that's fine.
Right. So I think the question was, right, how did I get started in investing, right? So I want to say back when I was in high school, I started just paying attention to, you know, news reports where X event was, you know, tied to a certain move in the market. So you would have a situation where, you know, anything from, you know, this country is having instability, right? Some European country or some South American country, or it could be an issue with, you know, at the time when we were in high school, right? Something going on with the war in Iraq or Afghanistan, hitting oil prices or hitting, you know, government contractors, you know, negatively or positively. And I just saw the correlation between news and the market moving, and that just really caught my interest, right? Because it kind of created a situation where, hey, I can identify a pattern based on world events, and there's nothing sophisticated about that other than spending the time to read and understand what's going on geopolitically, right?
Yeah.
That's what got me started. And I think I made my first investment maybe my summer before my freshman year. I mean, as soon as I could open up a brokerage account, I opened one. Uh, I can't believe back then, they were still charging something like $15 a trade on Charles Schwab, right? It
Yeah,
was crazy.
yeah,
That sounds so expensive nowadays.
right.
But that's what got me started, and there was just so much volatility back then that you could see, and we're not talking penny stocks. I mean, these are NASDAQ, some blue chip stocks, your Fords. They were going like 20, 30% one way or the other day to day.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's really where a lot of people build a foundation for wealth, is when you see a lot of volatility, because you can't long game, you can't do that, right? I'm not saying it doesn't exist out there, people who day trade continuously on swings and take big risks and still come out ahead. They exist, right? But they're kind of the exception. So the general rule of thumb is, you want to build a nest egg, and then from there, you invest smartly. But the issue comes in is, how do you build that nest egg, right? So you have two ways to approach it. You build a nest egg over time, which you should, but simultaneously, you should have a set percentage of your money to the side that you're ready to invest anytime you start to see a lot of market volatility, such as we're seeing now.
yeah. And I mean, you've seen a lot more market experience than I have. I think I tried out a little bit like in March and April, and I think my strength is spotting like long-term trends, but my weakness is just the inexperience of not knowing how the market operates on a long-term basis. Because I'm thinking like, oh, like if a stock's dropping, like it's like I'm freaking out. You're like, it's just part of it. Just let it go. You understand the bigger picture. So um, I was going to ask you, like, have you ever seen a year like 2020 in the market? I mean, you have a lot of experience, but I don't know.
In relation to the stock market, the only thing I could compare it to in our lifetime, that I recall, was literally us getting involved in Iraq. When the U.S. got involved in Iraq, everyone was predicting, this is going to bankrupt the country, all this negative sentiment, which was in the media, but the stock market didn't care. And that's something that I think people are realizing during this COVID experience. The market doesn't have a conscience, right? It cares about what's going to happen in the future. So when you see, the stock market just kill it over this period over 2020, it's killing it based upon the expectation of what revenues are going to be next year, and not so much from the side that, hey, COVID didn't impact us as bad as we thought it did. It's really trading higher because it sees an exit already. It sees an exit for these companies where there's going to be a heck of a lot less competition, right? So let's just look at, pick a stock, right? So even, the big one right now, right? So everyone's looking at the movie theater stocks, right? And despite, like an AMC losing money hand over fist, the real reason that stock has value is because if they can just squeak it out, if they can just make it until, Q1, Q2 of next year, when we really do have a vaccine out, if they can squeak that out, there's not going to be any competition out there. It's them. They're going to be a monopoly, right? They're going to be the Amazon of movie theaters. So they're going to be in such a good position. That's why there's value in that stock. And I'm not in no way, shape, or form saying people, tell people to buy and hold. That's definitely not a buy and hold stock. But that's why you've seen all of 2020 the stock market just continue to rally, because unfortunately, all the mom and pops that compete against these established publicly traded companies are just falling to the side.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely looked at that, but just on a level of, it got beat down. Maybe whenever things get back to normal, it'll probably shoot back up. But I mean, there's no telling when that could be or what the future holds for that company, like you said.
Yeah. And, it's even more pronounced sometimes. We think of movie theaters, but even if you look at like big box retail, is already headed on the way down. mostly because there's just too many big box stores out there and needed to be consolidated to market. But you look at it now, and other than Macy's and maybe Nordstrom's, like who's really going to be there anymore, right? I seriously doubt JCPenney is going to beat it out. Sears obviously under. You see all these like regional, like the Belks, the Dillards, et cetera, having really really tough time. And definitely all the in-mall stores, right? The clothing stores that were in the mall, I hadn't been to the mall in a while, but I'm thinking like the Banana Republics, et cetera, that were inside of malls, those really aren't going to survive. So you really want to look at these companies that you think they'll be able to squeak it out, make it to the vaccine period, and that their competition won't be there. So they're just going to kill it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I was in retail for 5 or 6 years, and we could even see inside the industry, it was like our goals for the next year, they basically say what you made last year plus 5% or 10%. And we would almost never hit the goal because like every year retail is going down. So even if we did really well, it seemed like, or we had a good week, like by the time the whole month rolled around, like we were 10%, 20% down almost every month because less and less people were coming into the store in general. So I kind of saw that, come in from a retail standpoint, but like I've heard basically COVID and the pandemic sped up the whole process by about 5 years. So, it's going to be interesting to see kind of where we are, from 6 months to a year from now. But I guess I do want to ask you too, like the stocks that you've seen, like Peloton, Zoom. Zoom's been like the darling of the pandemic stocks, or work from home stocks, I should say. Doesn't really sound good. Like, what do you see for them, I guess, on the horizon for if after things normalize, I guess? Do you still see Zoom and all that, like maintaining the crazy levels that it got to?
I don't see Zoom holding on, quite frankly, because their product is free on Google. So I, I mean,
like what's the business model?
They're trying to improve upon a free product. So that's tough, right? Now, if they have like extra value add and they start getting into maybe telehealth or something, that'd be interesting. But I wouldn't. I mean, other than maybe play some day trade swings, but even there, I just don't see Zoom staying anywhere near where it's at. I will tell you, Peloton though, I think that yes, they're here to stay. They're probably going to be like an Apple, or in my opinion, like an Apple, or even Microsoft is kind of getting there, but definitely like an Apple, Amazon, Google, where it's like those buy and hold. Like you just don't worry about it. You just buy that stock and leave it in, and it'll be fine. And I have that confidence in Peloton. 2 reasons. One, they're diversifying really fast, right? So they started off with the bike, now they have a treadmill, and so now they're coming out with other exercise equipment. 2, they've set the bar so high on kind of like the quality of their equipment that even when gyms open back up, don't be surprised if those gyms that open up buy Peloton equipment.
Interesting. See, I would have never thought of something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the expectation now, right? That's the quality expectation. People expect to have a class, a personalized biking class right in front of them. People expect to have, a digital running coach. And, I even after the vaccine, I don't think the idea of being shoulder to shoulder in a bike class is going to be appealing to everyone, right? So I do think gyms are going to open back up. But I have a strong sense that a lot of the equipment that they're going to be buying is going to be Peloton equipment.
Interesting. Okay. See, like this is good info. So also like I guess most of the stocks and things that I'm kind of purchasing, I'm just buying, and I know buy and hold is not always the right strategy for everything, but I'm kind of just putting stuff in and like, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a long-term trend. I just need to leave my money alone, watch it, and then look at it every so often. But hopefully in years from now, it would be going up. So big thing that I talked about in the last podcast was cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin obviously has been on a steady climb lately, going from like 14 to 16,000 in a matter of weeks. I heard you say that Bitcoin is about to fork. I think we were talking this morning. Can you explain what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I was referring to Bitcoin Cash, right?
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to try to present myself as a crypto expert here. But for all the lay people and those who, have a little bit of experience and are on our level, basically what's happening is that the nodes that currently host Bitcoin Cash, right, the blocks, they're going to do what's called a fork. And apparently it's going to cause a situation where some of those nodes, right, that hold the blockchains for Bitcoin Cash are now going to be shifted over and dedicated to a whole new coin that's going to be created. Okay.
Okay. Huh.
When Bitcoin Cash was created, the idea was it forked from Bitcoin. So what I just explained that Bitcoin Cash is about to do, that's how Bitcoin Cash was formed originally when it forked from Bitcoin. When you look at just the trading of the overall market, crypto market, but specifically the correlation between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, anytime that Bitcoin Cash does a fork or they do these updates, that they do routinely to add either more complexity or less complexity to their algorithms, there's typically a quick dip in Bitcoin as well, definitely in Bitcoin Cash, but also correlating dip in Bitcoin if you look at the graphs. So that's what I was alluding to. And I believe the fork is going to happen Sunday, somewhere around like 8 a.m. Eastern this Sunday. So it's going to be, a lot of attention, at least it's going to have my attention, where the overall crypto prices go on Sunday. I think Sunday and Monday, but probably Sunday is going to be a key day to get in on some really good pricing on some interesting crypto. I'm keeping a really good eye right now on Litecoin and also possibly Bitcoin, but only if I can get it at that 14,000 level. I just feel more comfortable at that level. A lot of the people who are still holding it and who actually mine Bitcoin, you can kind of track the percentages online, but a lot of them are in at 14. So there's just a lot of stability there. So I know I can propel from there. And for Bitcoin Cash, my hesitation to buy Bitcoin Cash, because it will dip. My prediction is that it will dip. It's always typically dipped every time they've had an update. And I believe when they forked before, they had a dip as well. I just have a little bit of hesitation there because, the markets stop trading Bitcoin Cash when this happens because, you have this system with all these nodes and you're going to turn off, maybe, I don't know, I think it's going to be like 10%. It's a small percentage, but they're going to shift over and shift our computational power to a different coin. If you look at, for example, at Coinbase, right, they give you a notification that, hey, as soon as we can confirm that the other 90% of the nodes that are left that are managing Bitcoin Cash, as soon as they're up and running, we'll open up trading again. But anytime you tell someone that, hey, you're stuck with this stock or you're stuck with this equity or you're stuck with this until we open a market back up, I mean, I can't think of any example where that's a good thing.
Yeah, I do remember like watching the Bitcoin documentary, and there was points where Bitcoin, when it started to go into the 100 level, was fluctuating so heavily people couldn't get their money in and out. It was just craziness because people were trying to buy and sell like crazy, but the market couldn't keep up with all the volatility and everything started crashing as far as like people's software and stuff.
Well, people need to realize too, right? That's not unique to cryptocurrency. So I believe it was Monday. I couldn't log into either my Ameritrade or my Merrill Lynch accounts. Both of them were their servers were down because of the volume of trading. Because that's when the release from Pfizer was made for the vaccine.
Oh, yeah. Market was up like crazy.
Everybody was locked out for like 4 or 5 hours. Eventually they opened up their desktop, but you missed the rally if you didn't have any type of like limit order in.
Yeah. I was like, man, it'd be funny to have a little SPY option that day, but it's like you never know when that stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, and look, and you're going to hear it here first. I am very skeptical about this vaccine being. No, I mean, absolutely, I'm going to get it. Let me say that first, right? So I'm definitely going to get the vaccine, but I'm very skeptical on how successful they're claiming it is. And my main reason why is because the Pfizer CEO comes out Monday, says, hey, it's going to be 90% accurate, and then sells $15 million worth of stock. If you really had confidence that your vaccine is going to be 90% effective, wouldn't you hold on to that stock until people start, coming up on the news saying, like, hey, I'm so happy I can go grocery shopping without a mask on because of my Pfizer vaccine? That would stock market, the stock for Pfizer would go extremely high. The fact that he sold stock, right as that announcement happened is super suspect. And they can, they're claiming that, hey, it was pre-planned. Well, I'm like, my perspective, yeah, it was pre-planned, but your press release was also pre-planned, right? The study that you're claiming, allows you to come out and say it's going to be 90% effective. That study was done months ago. So you knew that, and obviously your communications team planned a release, right, to publicly say it's 90% effective. So just the fact that he had already planned to sell stock, I mean, it was just very, very sketchy to me.
Yeah, and like you said, if you really believed in it, you would think that'd be a buy and hold, and you'd want it for the long term, because
Yes.
if he sold, then that indicates that he doesn't think the stock will go above the price that it was at that point. And if the vaccine is successful, obviously the stock should go way higher. But yeah, that's an interesting take, and definitely something I didn't even know about. So you brought up Litecoin too. What's your outlook for Litecoin?
Okay, so I really like Litecoin, mainly because PayPal is about to, in the next week or two, allow everyone with a PayPal account to buy, trade for cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and there's one more in there. It escapes me, but that's going to drive demand, serious demand for those coins. And I mean, think about it, right? So everyone's going to open up their PayPal app like they usually do, and they're going to see, you can look it up, but they're going to see a big banner at the top, buy cryptocurrency. And they're going to click on it. And how many people are just going to say, hey, I'm just going to buy a coin, see what this is like, right?
Exactly, yeah.
If you look at where Bitcoin Cash is, assuming it stays at this price, which I doubt it will after Sunday, but Bitcoin Cash somewhere around 250. Obviously Bitcoin is 16K and above now holding it, which is impressive. Litecoin, is still, I believe, in the $60 range, somewhere around there. So that's just obvious for me that that's going to draw the most attention. And I think either one or two things are going to happen. Once PayPal goes national with this, either there's going to be a quick dip because people were anticipating a big rush of buying once the app goes live, and it's not going to happen. So it'll be a quick dip, which will be a buying opportunity. So either that's going to happen, or it's just going to skyrocket, and it won't be that quick dip, and expectations will be met. So that's why I am heavy Litecoin over the next 90 days. Percentage wise, I'd be really surprised if any other crypto beats it.
Yeah, see, I think that's such a good point too, because all this good news where I had heard that PayPal had diversified into cryptocurrency and had bought Bitcoin, and I knew that there were going to be some options to buy crypto, but I didn't even know there were 4 that were going to be on there. And the fact that Litecoin is on PayPal, like, this is like the first step towards mass adoption of cryptocurrency.
Exactly.
Like you said.
That's exactly right. And, the nice thing about cryptocurrencies, right, is that, supply is fixed, or at least predictable, right? So, increased demand, it's going to happen. I mean, it's impossible that there won't be increased demand. I mean, that we accept that, right? Regardless of your opinion on cryptocurrencies. And I just think that if every single individual is just going to be able to just click a button on PayPal and buy it, it's going to be a game changer, right? I mean, right now, is there anything else comparable? Yeah, you can download Coinbase and in Coinbase Pro, and there's some other apps, but it's not PayPal, right? That's the difference is you've made it big, if before COVID, you made it big for example, you're doing your Etsy store, right? For your blue light glasses, you could sell your blue light glasses at online, right? You could sell it, at boutiques, stores, etc. But you made it big when you get Walmart or Target to carry your glasses, right? That's when the blue light glasses would really explode. Think about that for crypto. Think about that for Litecoin. Yeah, Litecoin, you can download these apps, you can get them. Think about that as your boutique stores. Yeah, you could buy direct from consumer, right? If you go that route, you don't have to go through Coinbase or other platforms. Yeah, that's there too. But this is putting Litecoin on a Walmart store shelf. It's putting Litecoin on a Target store shelf right in the middle of eye level, the sweet spot. Big banner ad on PayPal. So again, my prediction is that one or two things are going to happen. As soon as that update comes from PayPal, it's either going to shoot up or it'll be a quick dip because expectations weren't met. But within a few days or at most a week, it's going to spike right back up.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's a good analogy. I think you explained that in a really good way. So lastly, I guess the one that you talked about was Algorand. And, I've seen that and I'm like, oh, the price looks great, 30 cents, or I think it's down to 28 now. But I did some research and a lot of YouTubers agree with you that it's kind of a sleeping giant. So tell us quickly, why you like Algorand and a little bit more about it.
The reason I like Algorand is because it has a solid team behind it. So there is, I believe if he's not a Nobel Prize winner, he was like Nobel nominated or something along those lines, right? So it's very big intellectual power behind it. And it has a purpose other than being used as a monetary tool. There's a lot of technology that can be supported by its blockchain. So it actually has use in the enterprise level outside of just being another form to pay for bartering of goods or services. I love Algorand. My only hesitation, the more I've thought about it, and I think my thought on Algorand has evolved maybe over the last 24 hours, is that I like it too much. And anytime I like a stock or a business too much, I've learned my lesson now because I asked myself, well, why hasn't it been more successful yet? If this is so good, if the people who back Algorand are, these sophisticated intellectuals that really, are the top in their industry, if the enterprise use for Algorand is there, that puts it beyond Bitcoin or Litecoin, right? There's actually technological applications at the enterprise level, like a Walmart could use Algorand, et cetera. If all that's there, why hasn't it taken off yet? So that's been my only hesitation. So I'm just playing it safe. I bought a few $1,000s in Algorand. I'm holding it, but I don't think it has the same potential in the short term as like a Litecoin would have, simply because of that PayPal initiative I cited earlier. So yeah, Algorand I think that's why it has so many people, and especially the Algorand people are the most passionate about it, right? Because it is the technology's there. It's got it figured out, but it hasn't happened yet. And sometimes it hasn't happened yet because either the industry isn't ready and they're ahead of their time, similar to Sears, right? So, I mean, I don't want to switch too much here, but Sears originally had the idea for Amazon, right? They tried to be the first Amazon, but it was just ahead of their time, and they failed. So I just feel like maybe Algorand might be ahead of its time.
That's a good, I was thinking maybe they're not marketing well enough or something like that. Cause I know some projects are doing a really good job of marketing themselves. Every time they do something, it's like a press release for posting about it everywhere. But I'm sure, they have a good team from what I've heard, like you said too. But yeah, I think that's probably a more likely explanation is that, we're still in the first inning of cryptocurrency and this is maybe second or third.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And the thing is that if you're being too early is just as bad as being too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think have a suspicion it might be too early, but we'll see. And again, I actually put some money in it, not a big percentage, but I put, like 2% of my portfolio in it. So we'll see. Something happens, great for them. I'm rooting for them. Right. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Cool. Well, I guess I wanted to see, can you give us what you think is your Bitcoin price prediction for 2021?
For 2021, I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 30K and held 30K on Bitcoin. I think that's realistic. It probably will shoot above that. I don't know what that number is, right? Because that's just a pure guessing game.
Yeah.
The reason I chose 30K is because it's just below doubling from where it is now. And I have to believe that with PayPal making it instant to be able to buy, sell, and trade on their platform, there's going to be a positive impact there for Bitcoin. And I think that's what it is. It's going to be a lot more widely adopted once PayPal, pushes this out. And I think that's what's going to drive the price to go up. And I think it will be stable around 30K. I think that's foreseeable.
Okay. I guess too, on the Bitcoin note, like, I think if PayPal is about to have it as far as like a mass adoption thing, I guess my question would be, how could Bitcoin drop from 16 to 14 during that time if we're about to see like a spike in demand? Or do you have any take on that one?
Yeah, I think that'll, one of the often criticisms of cryptocurrencies is that a lot of times they just trade on emotion. So since and there's no underlying there's no fiscal policy or anything like that, a lot of the trading just happens on emotion. And I have a suspicion that 14 level is a price point, entry point for a large percentage of current holders. And, so everyone else, mostly, your retail investor, which is you and me, right? You see that 10% gain, you're at what, 15.4, and you get to close to 16 and you sell, right? And then emotionally people just sell. But then there's been a lot of institutional buyers like GBTC. Also, I saw some other news on other companies, maybe a SoFi or something like that. But there's been other institutional buyers, and they're all in around 13, 14. And that's why that's holding. I think that's going to be the floor going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we'll go below 13, 14 ever again unless something catastrophic were to happen. So that's what's happening, right? There's just a lot of emotional traders out there, and that's why you see the big swings. And I just think that emotional trade is going to be overcome by the greater demand that's up and coming.
Yeah, and I do think that's a good point that you brought up, because in December 1st, Ethereum 2.0 comes out. And so if we see a spike in Ethereum and some of the other altcoins, that could lead some Bitcoin holders to sell their Bitcoin, move into altcoins and Ethereum before we get that next big pump of Bitcoin. So if you are listening or watching and you see Bitcoin at 14K, buy it, because that's probably the lowest it's ever going to go again. So nice. I probably should have asked you this at first, but I guess since you're an entrepreneur, like, I'd like to hear your journey of when you started your company, and then like kind of that whole journey and where you are now. I know that's a long story, but
How much time do we have, Chris?
Yeah.
Chris, quick time check. We have another 10 minutes?
We'll go as long as you need. No worries, man. Because I think
Sure.
that's probably the fun part too,
Sure. Look, I started my company, Baltodano Securities. I want to say I started it a year before I entered law school. So going back to right after Hurricane Katrina, there was just a big gap in the workforce along the Gulf Coast. And in New Orleans, I got the opportunity to work for an organization a nonprofit that helped clinics get grants from the government in order to rehire staff. So I got to see what like the proposal process looked like, et cetera, and what it took to put those together. And I've always been a pretty good writer. So I thought, hey, why don't I help other people put together proposals for government contracts? And at the time, right, Katrina, there was like $1 trillion something that was spent between feds and insurance money and everything else. And so there was bids flying everywhere, right? Everyone from, the 100 apartment complex owner was putting out an RFP, request for a proposal, to see, which contractor wanted to take the contract, which electrician contractor wanted to take the contract, which demo contractor wanted to take the contract, to government bids out there because they need a new vendor to cut the lawns, right, or cut the grass rather, like the medians, trash pickup. That's how Sidney Torres and a lot of the money in New Orleans, younger money in New Orleans, was made after Katrina, because they got those contracts, those RFPs. So put together Baltodano Securities with the angle of, hey, I'm going to help you entrepreneurs, right? You guys with the lawn service, you guys who have an electrician license and are sole proprietor, but you actually have your company set up. I'm going to help plumber in the same situation, et cetera. I'm going to help you guys get these government contracts, and I just want some points in revenue for putting the proposal together, all the paperwork together, et cetera. And it was actually pretty lucrative for me. The only reason I stopped is just because something else became more lucrative, which, after law school, I was able to consult with several healthcare companies, a lot on the payer side, but also on the provider. And now I'm with, Ubiquity, which is a global organization. I'm vice president there. Mm-hmm. I haven't been really been as entrepreneurial, right, as I used to be. And really, I don't think I've put a proposal outside of my day in and day out work. I don't think I've put together a proposal as a consultant maybe for 2 years or maybe a year and a half. I think I did like a nights and weekend one together for an old client, but I haven't really been keeping up with it. But I'll tell you something. If forever I would have a need, I had to be entrepreneur out of need, not out of want, but out of need, right? If an unfortunate situation happened where I were to lose my job, I think that it is going to be like a national Katrina style rebuilding effort as soon as this administration comes in, right? Because they're already talking about that they want to do a 1 month or 6 week lockdown just to finally cure the virus, which I don't disagree. I don't agree with at all, but it's going to happen. And the way they're going to sell it is that we're going to spend a bunch of money, right? And again, it'll probably be like a $2 or $3 trillion stimulus package. Well, when that money goes out, there's going to be a lot of contracts, a lot of government contracts available. And the thing is, the average entrepreneur or average electrician, average tree cutter, average, there's contracts for everything. I mean, gosh, I whatever, right?
Concrete, like anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Pour concrete. I mean, anything. Even clerical stuff, data entry people, someone who's, specializes in typing fast, or someone who specializes in childcare sitting, et cetera. There's going to be all these RFPs out, but they don't know how to get them, right? So if I ever had to be an entrepreneur out of need, it's about to be, a great opportunity to, help some, entrepreneurs out and acquiring those dollars, because they really need the most help anyway, as opposed to, just these big guys getting all the contracts just because they have someone to work for them to put together a proposal. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is.
That's really cool. I didn't know that's how you got started, but you're literally going out to try to help people rebuild. And that's, a great way to start a company, because you're not just like, hey, let me sell you a product, or let me sell you like this. Like, it's just basically like, hey, I'm here to help you, and like help me on the back end, Like,
yeah. And that's the way I did it, right? I never charged up front. I would just charge points on the back end. So, I would only get compensated if they were successful. And, I batted, 350, 400. So, every 3 we were locking one down. And remember the last one I did actually was for counseling. So there was an RFP out for counseling services for, I think it was for a community center. So like the neighborhood community center put out an RFP for a counselor. They couldn't just hire a counselor. They had to put out an RFP. And I was able to secure that contract, and it was like $180,000 a year. And this person's over here, just doing, probably doing like $1,000 a month on house calls, because they didn't have a job, but they were like a counselor. But he secured 180 grand, right? Contract, and just being a counselor at the community center, and it's infinite. The opportunities for RFPs, government RFPs are infinite. And when this money gets released in January, February, it's going to be a gold rush.
Interesting, man. You have so many good nuggets of knowledge. It's awesome. Like, I feel like I learned a lot listening to you. And last week I did my podcast and I talked about cryptocurrency and investing and stuff. And, I've been following crypto for years now and watching videos here and there. But then I started trying to explain it, and I just was like tripping over my words. And I was like, man, I don't know anything. Like, I feel like now. So it was definitely good to hear you, because you spoke on it a lot better than I did last week. So that's what I wanted to provide the listeners with, is like a more educated view on some of the stuff, combined with like years of market experience. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, man. It's good to see you and good to talk to you.
Anytime, Steve Walker. Hope we get to do it again.
All right. Thanks, Carlos. Have a good one, man.
Take care.